Mark Brennan of FightOnState.com here with another, it's not a Joe Paterno press conference wrap, it's a Tom Bradley press conference
wrap. I like how
wrap.
you caught yourself there, Mark. That's
yeah,
good.
Well, I've done so many of these things, Bob, that right. It really is a strange day. Joined today by special guest Bob Flounders of the Harrisburg Patriot-News. Usually not up here for the midweek press conferences, but obviously, right. Bob, huge news breaking this week. Tom Bradley, his first press conference as interim head coach. How do you think he did?
I'll be honest. I think it was about exactly like how I expected it, Mark. I didn't think he was going to go off the message very much, and I think he stayed on the message. He was asked some tough questions about what he knew about 1998 and 2002 as far as allegations. He was asked a question about Mike McQueary. He was asked some other questions, and he just deferred and said, "I'm not going to talk about anything that's going on with the ongoing criminal investigation." He preferred only to talk about football, and I guess it's not that surprising. He got a little bit emotional, I think, one time when asked about Joe and what he means to him, and he said, other than his father, he's probably done more for him than anyone else in his life. So it was, I really thought, I don't know how you felt, Mark, but I kind of thought it went exactly the way as it was planned to go. Yeah,
we're literally out here outside of the media room. Reporters are kind of filing out witty banter, that sort of thing going on. The disappointing thing from Bradley's perspective is that he's waited so long for this, and for it to happen in these circumstances. He admitted, they asked him not to show his usual sense of humor, and those of us who have covered Penn State, love Tom Bradley or hate him, and I don't know many people who hate him, but he's really a genuinely funny guy. I mean, and he didn't get a chance to show any of that, and I get why. The one thing that really disappointed me, interim athletic director Mark Sherburne comes in, introduces Tom Bradley, and it basically throws him to the wolves. I mean, this has been handled so poorly on so many different levels. To force Bradley to deal with every single one of those questions. Now, don't get me wrong. I think Tom had to answer, or at least field those questions. But for the interim AD not to step up and at least answer a few questions or field a few was ridiculous to me.
It was, but I mean, it's just keeping in the way Penn State does things. In a lot of ways, he was like Tim Curley. I mean, Tim Curley, he goes out on the field at halftime and he shakes hands with people, but very rarely do you see Tim Curley at a news conference answering hard questions. I think it's going to be that way with Mark Sherman. It was that way with Graham Spanier. I mean, it's part of the problem at Penn State is when you live life in a vacuum and you don't really prepare for anything and you don't expect to have to answer to anything. Well, eventually you have to answer for something, and you have to put your best face forward, and you have to answer some tough questions. That's what they pay you to do, but they just don't want to do it, and it's it's just another frustrating day as this Penn State story unfolds. And I think moving forward, we can expect more of the same.
Yeah. So now the people from the football program who have answered the tough questions are the players and Tom Bradley.
Exactly. And that's the people that everyone wants to hear from, no one's talking, and the people that really should be kind of left alone of just being messed with. And the players are actually trying to get ready for a huge game. Couldn't be possibly more distracted. I don't know. I couldn't think of a scenario where I'd say, all right, Penn State football players, it's the biggest game of your life. What can we possibly do to take you off point and off focus? Oh, yeah, we could do this. And that's the way it's been all week, and they're probably going to have to deal with more of it moving forward. I'm sure it's a big problem for Saturday, but obviously the game has to take a back seat to what's going on, and it's just you just wonder what's going to come next, and I have a funny feeling, Mark, something's coming next very soon.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that we're not able to focus on what's been an unbelievable team, but we can't focus on it because these charges are so horrific. This story is so monumental and awful and terrible in so many different ways. It's just crazy. But from a nuts and bolts perspective, Tom Bradley said he met with the players last night. Sounds like he's talking to a lot of people today. Did not sleep. He did. He looked really tired. Sounds like he's going to try to have Ron Vanderlinden and Larry Johnson as co-defensive coordinators. Doesn't sound like there are any changes on the offensive staff other than the fact that Mike McQueary, who's also in the middle of this firestorm, may be coaching from the press box.
Yeah, and I know people are going to have made a lot of formed a lot of opinions on Mike McQueary. And there's a lot of debate about, should he still be coaching the team? I have an opinion. You have an opinion. I don't know. I don't know how he can be on the field Saturday. I really don't. Tom was asked about it. He says, as of right now, he's coaching. He could be in the booth, and he said that Mark Sherman, I think he said
Sherburne,
Sherburne is going to make the call on that ultimately, and I think a call needs to be made. I really do, for the best interest not only of Mike and also for the best interest of the football team, because it's going to be a pretty unusual atmosphere on Saturday, and it was a little surprising that I'm still surprised that no one's really talked about Mike.
Yeah.
No one, not last night, not today. And you want more answers. I just don't know if we're going to get anything more definitive about that.
You would hope at some point. I know there's been some serious criticism against him, and some of it's difficult to argue about, but
right.
You would love for him to have his day to tell his side of the story. I think he's been the one real smart person with respect to keeping his mouth shut as this is unfolding.
Right.
If it goes to court, I'm sure eventually he'll have a chance to tell his side of the story, but you would have to imagine that it will be craziness if he's down there on the sideline. So I would imagine if he does coach, he'll be up in the box. Sherburne, don't know why they haven't made that decision already. They probably should have decided that one way or another by now.
I just don't. There's some things. Well, not a lot makes sense, I think, when you follow this Penn State football team closely in terms of day in, day out operations. But I think if you're on the beat long enough, you kind of just roll with that. But when something obviously needs to be addressed, and they obviously are not going to address it, and you wonder if they're ever going to address it, I just think that Penn State, the program and the higher-ups, have just not done themselves any favors in the last week by the way that they've handled these things with the whole country looking in. I mean, there's a chance to do a little bit, maybe just a little bit, of damage control, and instead the way they handle things and the fact that they don't address things and the right people aren't taking questions, I mean, you're just throwing gasoline on the fire. So it's very puzzling to me, and I think Mark, it speaks to the fact that Penn State has never really had to deal with anything like this ever.
Yeah.
It's always been Joe Paterno's show. He's always controlled the message, and he's been a dictator in a lot of respects, and they are unprepared. They're completely unprepared for this.
Yeah, it's a whole new level of accountability. One of the things that I've been very critical about is the fact that everybody's putting out these statements, and I thought one statement was worse than the next. I mean, it's like, Joe hires a PR firm to put out a statement which was like a direct taking on the Board of Trustees head on. I don't know that it would have mattered,
right.
Whether Scott had put it out or whether this PR guy had put it out. Spanier, I mean, what kind of colossal mistake was that, putting out that thing? I mean, all of these things have been so mishandled. And, as we talk about this, let's also remember that this is, these allegations are horrific. And I know everybody's saying this, but I think we have to keep remembering, keep in mind the alleged victims of this, because those are the ones that your hearts really have to go out to. We're talking about all this other stuff, a lot of it. I'm not sure how much it matters, but the way Penn State's handled this has been crazy. I'd like to throw something at you. At the Harrisburg Patriot-News, you guys have been behind this story from the beginning, did a great job. Sarah Ganem, obviously, and then the rest of the team, everybody pitching in. What's it been like for the Patriot News going through this, having broken the story back in March, and then there was a delay? I'm sure people were wondering, was this story accurate? Was it not accurate? I'm sure you guys heard a lot of criticism. What has it been like? What was it like going through that now to see the way this has exploded?
Well, I think when it really started to heat up, and Sarah Ganem has obviously done a job that no one else in the country has done, and I think that continues to do that. When it first started to heat up, and this has been in the report that's been in the making for a while, Mark, I think there are news people that are familiar with how this goes, but on the sports side, with myself, with Dave Jones and some other people, with my bosses, there was a lot of catch-up work for us to do just on understanding why a story like this, when it does break, why it takes so long. I think a lot of people were wondering, well, we're talking about an incident that happened, 10 years ago. Why is it finally just coming out now? And I think that people just need to understand that it's such a tough story to get at. It's such a tough story to get at because as a reporter, and I'm talking about Sarah, I'm not talking about myself because she's the one that did all the heavy lifting, Mark. You have to gain the trust of victims' family. There's a lot of shame, obviously, that goes with this, and you have to earn their trust. You have to gain their confidence. They have to be willing to trust you. They have to be willing to talk to you. And the same goes for off-the-record sources in the legal community. I mean, it's one of those things where they're not really supposed to talk to you, even off the record.
Yeah.
And to piece all of it together, to make sure you have all your I's dotted, all your T's crossed, you have to be ready, you have to be right. It just takes a long time to get at it. Penn State, as you know, you live in State College. One of the things about Penn State is there's not a lot of major news agencies that are immediately close to Penn State. We're 90 minutes away. Pittsburgh's 2 hours away. Philly's 3 hours away. So there's not a lot of.
It's not like Columbus. It's not where
there's not a lot.
Stations
There's not a lot of eyes on the Penn State program. There's not a lot of people around here poking around. In the outlying community. So it was a tough story to get at. But I think I just really know that the allegations have yet to be proven. But as you hear some of the talk and you read the grand jury report, the Attorney General report, I just have to say that I think for someone like Sarah Ganem, who's a Penn State graduate, 25 years old, she's done a really remarkable job. And I just think moving forward, she's really energized a lot of people on the staff and motivated them to try and duplicate what she's doing. We're not doing that very well, but it's just been a really surreal last, I'd say, 18 months. I mean, we've known about it for a while, but you just can't report what you think you know. You have to know it. And I think there's a lot more to come, and sadly, I think a lot of it's not going to be very positive. Yeah,
I've been on this beat since '88, late '90s when you first came on.
2002, actually. Yeah,
but I know you had covered some games before that. I have never gone through anything like these last few days, and I'm not saying woe was me. I mean, it's been this is what we're paid to do, to cover these things. But this has just been absolutely mind blowing, hasn't it?
It has been mind blowing, and in a lot of ways, it's like almost like it's a 24/7 story, and it's. Because of the way that Penn State's handled things, you never know where the next fire is going to surface. You literally don't, because there's nothing coming from Penn State. All the major figures at Penn State are all in the middle of the story.
Well, a lot of them are gone now.
Or in the story or gone, and they're definitely not talking.
Yeah.
So I just feel like there's so much more that's going to come out, and I think that I don't want to call it a never-ending story, Mark, but when you think of all the things at play here, you think about the victims, you think about the legal issues, you think about the pending lawsuits. I know that we all know that are coming. We think about the future of the program. We think about the legacy of Joe Paterno, the coaching search that's likely going to ensue. I mean, it's just a crazy scenario. It's very sad, but I mean, it's a story that's going to stay, I think, on the national scene for a very long time.
Yeah, we're obviously doing our best to stay on top of it at FightOnState.com. You can read Bob's stuff at PennLive.com. You also do your radio show. You could point people to where they can listen to that.
No, we're going to do a 2-hour show today, 4 to 6. It is FM93.com in the Harrisburg area. 95.3.com, I think, is the website.
Just Google search Bob Flounders Radio, because that's how I got to it. And
there's a giant picture of my head, I think, next to the radio station. Nick Horvath's going to be in the studio today. We're going to talk about it and hopefully get some good fan reaction, because I think a lot of fans really need to talk about this and just kind of vent, because they're so upset. Former players we've talked to are so upset. But yeah, it should be a very interesting 2 hours. I'm sure you've encountered that as well with former players and fans, because it's almost cathartic at this point.
Yeah, and just so people know, today is Thursday, in case you're listening to this later in the week.
Thursday, that's right. Good looking out for me, Mark. It's Thursday, but it's also on demand. So 3 weeks from now, if you want to hear me ramble for 2 hours about this, and I'm sure you do, you can always look online to follow the show.
So that's the end of the first Tom Bradley press conference. Wrap Bob, Flounders Patriot News. I appreciate you joining us.
Anytime, Mark. Anytime for you.
And obviously, everybody out there, we appreciate you joining us, too. We'll see you next week. It's going to be interesting, folks.